Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week we're going to take another detour from the RPGs that I'm well versed in to getting back to the retro roots. And this is going back very, very far. This is going back all the way to 1993, 1994. And I was, 8, 9, 10 years old at the time. And this was when Toys R Us, before they closed down way back, whenever we go into the game section, they had the games, but they didn't have them in like boxes. They had them in like these colored slips. They had the name of the game, then they had these like white and yellow slips. And anybody who's old school probably remembers them along with me. And the one that I remember getting from Toys R Us more than anything else was Mega Man X. And Mega Man represents a franchise that, at least now that they brought it back and, Mega Man 11 was a success and, stuff like Mighty Number 9 wasn't, it shows that Capcom still has the skill level even after a super long time of doing a franchise to bring something back and do it justice. But this was at the time in the 90s where Mega Man seemingly couldn't fail. They'd had a bunch of games that were starting to show their age and, get samey, but I don't think anybody really cared. Mega Man is jump, shoot, get powers, jump, shoot, get powers. It's pretty basic. So Mega Man X comes in and they throw in higher fidelity graphics. They throw in a better tone, a stronger tone, I think a darker tone than Mega Man tends to. And Mega Man is like, I'm Dr. Wily, I will catch you, versus the world is destroyed because Sigma said I'm going to blow shit up. Viruses and, decay and all this junk. So Mega Man X represented a darker edge. Not always something that they could always follow through on, but there are instances where Mega Man X tends to be my preference. But it also comes down to the gameplay aspects. Because Mega Man has stuff like the slide and the Mega Buster and Rush and whatnot, but when you're able to do stuff like slide or jump around in the world or collect items that, give you fiddly new powers, it was just something different. It was something magical about it. And even though I'm not as big into, platformers and whatever anymore, Mega Man X always felt like one of those staples. And it's good to know that it's always fondly remembered as such. And most of that does come down to the gameplay innovations that they made at the time, and they were trying to keep the Mega Man stuff and the Mega Man X stuff separate. And of course, they went on their merry way and whatever. But Mega Man X is going to have that fondness if they ever do decide to make a Mega Man X9, provided they can wash the stink out of like Mega Man 7 and 8, right? But for now, I want to talk about Mega Man X, and I want to talk about as simple a plot as you can get. The world is 20XX. Mega Man X sort of existed, Dr. Light sort of existed, but also created Mega Man X as a sort of replacement. It's like he knew that all of his efforts and all of Dr. Wily's stuff didn't add up completely to saving the world like he'd envisioned. So he created X as a way to balance out what could end up happening. And it ended up becoming a war between what are known as Reploids, the general population of robots, and X himself, and Maverick. And the Maverick tend to be Reploids like X, who just, either by virtue of Sigma having control of them, deciding just to go with him, or having viral infections, different things. The Mavericks are your bosses, and the Mavericks are always your bosses. So instead of Plant Man and Metal Man and, Flash Man, all that stuff. You have different Mavericks based on different animals. And that's it. That's a unique way of differentiating them, and it also gives them something else that they can go on. You still have your standard, they have your powers, you get them, and then you can use them during the stages, and you just get to fiddle around with more things as you go. But as far as talking about Mega Man, you have to talk about X himself. I always find X to be a bit of a... He doesn't want to do things. Like, Mega Man never struck me as somebody who was afraid to fight. He just didn't want to do it. Mega Man X, more often than not, especially when they started getting into the more character-driven stuff like X4 and whatever, always came off as a guy who couldn't be asked to do a thing, which is counterbalanced by Zero, who never ran away, who never decided. And Zero was always the awesome one. Even today, I think people were just like, yeah, Mega Man X is a thing, but we want to play Zero. So after Mega Man X3, they said, we'll let you play Zero a little bit. Now you just play as Zero. And it's like, yeah, we get to use a fucking lightsaber. Let's go. So Zero was always the cool guy, much in the vein of Proto Man, but even more so. Once Zero makes his entrance in Mega Man X, you're like, why am I playing as X? I want to play as this guy instead. So that's why Mega Man X has always just been kind of meh. But they are... Not only do they have to deal with the Mavericks, they have to deal with Sigma. And Sigma is relentless. If you think Dr. Wily is relentless, Sigma is beyond compare when it comes to, I will not die, I will keep coming back, and I will ruin your shit. A lot of this story will come from like the Maverick Hunter port and re-release in the PSP era, but Sigma was a former like commanding officer in a way. He was just a very awesome warrior. He was Zero, if not better than Zero. But there's something about Sigma that's just not quite right. And despite the fact that he's able to lead and fight off against the Mavericks and whatever, he himself turns Maverick or becomes the first one to do so, and then ends up infiltrating everybody else and saying to them, hey, we don't like being Reploids. Join me and blow shit up and have fun and destroy them. So Sigma's there. There's also a bounty hunter / Sigma follower, sort of, named VIII. And VIII is just Boba Fett if he was evil, I suppose. Is Boba Fett still an evil guy? I don't know. I've been watching The Mandalorian and I'm thinking, Boba Fett's awesome. VIII is just some simpy, whiny version of X. But he's got the Boba Fett mask, and it's like, well, he's Boba Fett, but he can ride armor and stuff like that. So Sigma is the big bad. VIII is there to ruin X's day as kind of a mid-boss kind of thing. And Zero is there to help X along the way. So that's where the intro comes in. You have X just running through this destroyed hallway with all these cars and buses and, like, bug helicopter thing shooting at him and running him over, and a Storm Eagle's helicopter brings VIII in to just ruin X's day until Zero comes in and fights him off. And that's where the intro segment comes into play. But when to describe how to go through Mega Man X, you kind of have to go through each stage as their own separate thing. So the way that I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do a Sonic recap or do Donkey Kong or whatever, is go through stage, not stage by stage. Mega Man at least has 8 stages and the Sigma stages, so you can kind of easily knock them out in a list form, which is what I'm going to do. If I have some side tangents, I will, and I think that makes sense. But I'm going to go with what I would assume is Mega Man X's preferred path, because of the weakness system. I always did Chill Penguin into Flame Mammoth, but there's a different way of doing it. Like, they wait for Flame Mammoth till the end, because I always assumed Flame and Chill and whatever worked against each other. No, it was Flame against Chill Penguin, but Chill Penguin's the easy one. Like, Chill Penguin is the dork of the campaign, and they start him off, and it's a snow level. It's a nice little like keyboard intro, and it feels like an ice level, but there's not a whole lot in there. But they do have some interesting aspects to differentiate X from Mega Man. First being the dash boots. You find these like green and blue capsules that Dr. Light has like a Princess Leia hologram, and X gets to go into the capsule and receive this power. So this is where it starts. He gets the dash boots, and now you don't have to worry about making precision jumps down a fucking hole. You can at least dash your way through levels now. That's why I always loved Mega Man X, and that's why you always do Chill Penguin first, is you get the dash boots. Man, it makes things go so much better. Even though like Mega Man has a slide, this is just way more precision, way better, and the wall jumps aren't terrible. The wall jumps are pretty simple and pretty easy to handle, and the wall jumping with the dash boots is really cool. The rest of the stage, you get a ride armor, and the ride armor is just a giant mech suit. You punch. You get the ride armor. You can take maybe 5 or 10 hits from enemies, but you punch them. You punch them, and you punch them, and you punch them, and you get done. Chill Penguin himself, he's able to throw out statues of ice. He's able to freeze you. He's able to like ram you. And his big thing is he will jump into the ceiling and throw he will blow the gust of blizzard right at your face, and then the statues will come and rat you. But he's a joke. He's just a joke, and everybody knows he's a joke, which is sad. But you get him. You either just fight him legit, like everybody does, or you wait for Flame Mammoth and then you set him on fire. It's always funny because you can set him on fire and it's just not even a problem. But Chill Penguin gets wrecked within short order, and then you get the Shotgun Ice. The Shotgun Ice is really unique, where it's just a straightforward attack and then it bounces. Like, it's a geometrical bounce of like 4 little smaller beams that wreck face. But if you get the upgrade, it's this cool like ice cart looking thing. You need that for some extra power-ups and things, and that's the cool thing, is getting those extra power-ups feed into everything, almost like a Metroidvania, where if you get a new item, you can go get a different item in a different stage. So it's a lot of collectibles, but for a game that's only like an hour, they throw in a lot of cool, interesting stuff. And one of those is the ability to affect the environment, and I'll talk about that when we get to Flame Mammoth. But as we keep going, I'll talk about when and how you can affect environments of certain stages. Technically next, though I tend to do Flame Mammoth after Ice, is Spark Mandrill. And speaking of environmental, if you go to Storm Eagle stage, you can take Spark Mandrill's stage and take him out of the effect, because Storm Eagle, his airship will crash into the plant, and then like all the electricity and orbs and shit will go away, and now you just have to deal with like lights going on and off. The problem with the Spark Mandrill stage is you have a lot of like death pits and these flying like Star Fox looking fucking things coming at you, and you have to like deal with the lights going on and off, so it makes the jumps kind of annoying. But you get past those, you get past some mini bosses, and then you get to Spark Mandrill, who comes in with these like light bright things, and he's like, grrr, I'm awesome, and he's got these spark attacks, and he's got this punch, and he's just this gigantic baboon, and he's a joke. Again. And I'll talk about it now because it's notorious, and I think other games tend to make it way more just sad, but this was the genesis of what Gerard the Completionist called the Spark Mandrill Syndrome, and anybody who's played Mega Man X knows this. If you come here with Chill Penguin, not only is it his weakness, but as he's trying to punch you or something, he goes, and he's stuck. He's just stuck, and even if he's like throwing a fist at you, he could be stuck. And as long as you're far away from him, like, he can't hurt you. And he's dead. I mean, you could fight them legit. You could fight any monster without their weakness. It's perfectly fine, and that's what probably most people will do, is fight them legit and then fight with their weakness. That being said, the Spark Mandrill Syndrome is a thing that became a crutch, I think, more so in Mega Man X3 and 4 and onward, where they just completely invalidate an enemy. And as fun as that is, and for a guy who doesn't like fighting, too hard, like I don't like hard games to be very honest, it does also cheapen the effect, but the fact that you can avoid having to use it is its own benefit. So I know that Spark Mandrill Syndrome is a thing that you can choose not to do. And more power to you if you go Buster only or if you use a different weapon. That being said, the fact that you can do that at all is a bit much. I mean, there was an enemy, I think it was like, you use Flash Stopper on them in Mega Man 2 and they just completely stop. Or like, it wasn't like Toadman, where you hit him with a thing and you mess up his attack pattern and then he can't hit you anymore. Stuff like that, where it's a glitch and then it makes a harder fight into a complete fucking joke. But Spark Mandrill is a thing and will always be a thing, and I'm not gonna not use it. I mean, it's there. Once you get Spark Mandrill, you can go to Armored Armadillo. He is a typical mine level, but there is a benefit. There is a cool thing that Armored Armadillo does that most other like mine levels don't, and that's the music. I haven't talked about the music a lot, but Mega Man tends to use a lot of like metal themes and quick, fast-paced, active themes. Metal sounds, metal soundtracks. Armored Armadillo does that, but it's also more of a jazzy theme. A lot of bombastic, like, saxophones, trumpets, and stuff like that. And it's a cool change of pace, because a lot of the other songs tend to be the same. And there are a couple of different standouts. The intro sequence is one, Armored Armadillo is another, and then there's a couple more later. But you get through his stage, you get to be chased around by these like crazy tank things with an instant death spike, trying to wreck the fucking cave. But you end through a minecart level with this like spike minecart, and it just runs through. Like half the stage is just this fucking rock wall that has disappeared. There's like nothing but death. You have to jump off the minecart at the end with all these things flying at you. And the secret of all secrets, which I'll get to later, is actually housed at the end of Armored Armadillo stage. But you get to Armored Armadillo, he bounces around this the arena like this geometrical, like just jumping from place to place, and then he stops, and then he throws these little fucking projectile balls at you. Sometimes I don't know why, I've never seen him do it for me, but for other games I always see him doing like this charge beam thing and then exploding into like 8 charges. For the life of me, it never fucking happens. I always get the rolly ball, or I get the projectiles. But if you throw in the electric spark, then his armor goes away, and then you can hit him while he's doing his rolls. You get the rolling shield. And as we know with Mega Man, the most powerful thing is either bubbles or shields. It's one of those two things. It's bubbles or it's shields that do more damage than anything in any game. But you get the Armored Armadillo stage, you get the rolling shield, and then you go to Decoy Octopus. And as much as I don't hate any of these stages. That being said, Decoy Octopus is the water level. You get some funny little whirlpools, you get an instant death thing with a guy trying to pull you into a spike, you get this crazy snake that like tries to bite you, but you can use like Storm Tornado and just wreck its day, and then get a heart tank or an E-tank or whatever, and that's it. Like, Decoy Octopus is nothing special. It's the boss fight with him that's more special, because he comes off as kind of the, oh, you're such a waste of my time, you're a pathetic loser, and meh. Like one of his tentacles just kind of dismisses you like a hand wave, and meh. And he has like one of the harder attack patterns, because he's throwing these like homing missiles, and then he's throwing these freaking cyclone at you, and if he grabs you, he fucking drains your health. So it's like he's the harder boss, and yet his level is like not very memorable. So I'm like half and half. Like I like him and I don't. If you come back with Boomer Kuwanger's weapon, the boomerang cutter, you can actually cut off his tentacles and he can't do the drain attack anymore. And, you know, things like that. Those little additions to changing up the battle plan or changing up the stage, those make such a difference in how you want to approach playing a Mega Man game, because you are able to, you know, go from stage to stage. You don't have to just go weakness by weakness. And once you learn these little niggling things, you just like, oh, you could do that? That's awesome. But you get Decoy Octopus done and you get the homing torpedo, which is, as it implies, a homing bomb and a homing torpedo. I forgot to mention the upgrades for Spark Mandrill and etc. So Spark Mandrill gets like a half the screen clear, like left and right, like this electric spark. Armored Armadillo lets you get the shield because, of course, the shield works where it actually kills enemies while you're walking around. So you're invincible and you can like kill enemies. That's important for a different upgrade later. And Decoy Octopus has like multiple missiles. I don't know if they home. I think it's like 5 or 6 missiles, but I like the homing torpedo more in general. Next up is Boomer Kuwanger. And I spoke before about the themes. And this is one that always gets brought up. I think it's the techno-y vibe to it. I don't personally like ascribe to that. When I'm doing a Mega Man game, I want the heavier, like bombastic metal stuff, or I want something like Armored Armadillo where I want the jazzy stuff. But it is a nice change of pace to have a more like sci-fi aesthetic. You're in this like giant vertical lighthouse thing with laser beams and like stuff flying on the walls, and you're climbing this fucking tower with an elevator. And then you get to Boomer Kuwanger himself, and he's like, meh. And he's trying to get close to you. He's almost like the fucking Zora King. And he's just camouflaging himself. And then he gets to you and he just throws you against the fucking ceiling. That's where the homing torpedo comes in, because he can't get past it. He can't camouflage himself. He can't get away from it. He also throws in the boomerangs, but the boomerangs aren't nearly as problematic as him just not being caught. You don't want him to hit you, because he will just heave you against the wall, and it does a fuck ton of damage. But you get through Boomer Kuwanger, you get his boomerang cutter, which is awesome because you get to slice up everything. It can also work as a boomerang to get certain power-ups, which is cool. Specifically one in his own stage if you don't want to use the shotgun eyes part. But it's also, like I said, you can cut off Decoy Octopus's arms and cut off some other guy's nose, and it's fun. I think the boomerang cutter's upgrade is like multiple, just like the multiple missiles. You get the multiple boomerangs. Once you get done with him, Sting Chameleon, it's forest stage. You get the ride armor. It's cool. It's a forest stage. It's got some fun, like little unique bits. Like you can get the headpiece, and you can avoid getting wrecked by the crumbling part in the stage, but all the falling blocks and all the spikes and shit. Or you can take Decoy Octopus and kill him, and then you take this stage and you get all the water, so you can go get another thing. But you can also use like the shotgun ramp and do that instead. So even though I'm not like super partial to this stage, it's another one of those like it's a water level, it's a forest level, so you can already see where I have certain fondnesses for certain places and others. But Sting Chameleon is probably the hardest. I'd say Boomer Kuwanger and Sting Chameleon are probably the hardest bosses, because Sting Chameleon is a whiny little bitch. He runs from everything. He camouflages himself and runs away, and like he's shaking the fucking ceiling and the spikes come down everywhere. And then he has the freaking like the little barbs that come from his tail, and it's just like, man, he has so many freaking attacks. And then if you get close to him, he'll just fucking whack with his tongue and just wreck you. And I think he is the hardest boss. Like Boomer Kuwanger is hard if you don't have the homing torpedo, but Sting Chameleon is super hard unless you have the boomerang cutter. Like, you absolutely need it to have any possible chance, because it is just RNG up the ass with this guy. The only other hard boss is one of the Sigma bosses, and I think people know which one I'm talking about. But you get through Sting Chameleon, you get his Chameleon Sting, this triangular, laser beam thing. His upgraded weapon is another, it's a version of a shield. It's camouflage. The difference is that it lasts a little bit longer, but you don't kill the enemies that you're going through. So bear that in mind whether you want to use the shield or the camouflage. I tend to use the camouflage, but the shield has its uses. Once you get through Sting Chameleon, you go to Storm Eagle. And Storm Eagle, as I said, is my favorite because of the music. There's like destructive physics in one of the lighthouses and one of the air traffic control areas. It's a lot of like death pits and stuff, but I don't mind it because the airport aesthetic is really freaking cool, and getting to jump on the airplane itself is like awesome. You see it explode, you see all this other stuff explode, but the music, just this straightforward like heavy metal music, is just it's so good. Like, I know Armored Armadillo is like one of my favorites, but Storm Eagle is my favorite song. And whenever I hear a remix of it, like I've heard some metal remixes, it just fits so goddamn well. And Storm Eagle himself, he's not all that difficult. His whole thing is he's trying to knock you off the platforms. But if he finds he can't really do that, he'll throw in the Storm Tornado himself. He'll dive bomb you. But he's a guy you can kill with a buster pretty easily. You don't really need to use the Chameleon Sting too much, but it's there. So I find you can get rid of him pretty easily and deal with his stage. It's one of those that doesn't really get changed much by the setting if you go out of order. And then we end up with Flame Mammoth. This is the one I do after Chill Penguin all the time because this is the one that changes the most. If you go in normally, the fire like breaks through a lot of the pillars and a lot of the other stuff, and it's not the easiest thing to handle. If you take Chill Penguin out, like, this stage becomes an absolute cakewalk. The thing I never knew about Flame Mammoth was the arm upgrade. I didn't know you had to like dash to the left, because I don't think you're given like any notice. You see these like blocks you can kick with your foot, but I could never see it and I could never get to it. But then I find out that it's there, because I always thought you got the upgrade from 0 and that's where you got it, and then you get that mandatory. But it turns out that that's part of Flame Mammoth stage. But, Flame Mammoth is an interesting stage as far as fire levels go because of the change in scenery. Flame Mammoth himself is another easy boss. He takes up the stage and goes... He just loves to... He's not that hard. He just goes... He stands there and raises his arms and just... That one, but not so good. But he just stands there, and when he is bothered to actually fight you, he'll jump and try to smash you, or he'll try to set you on fire with his oil and his flame wave. I mean, it's his flame wave stuff that hurts the most, or him jumping at you. But if you got the boomerang cutter, you can cut off his nose, and the oil can't be used anymore. I always thought his weakness was shotgun ice, and then it turned out to be Storm Tornado. Or, as Mega Man Maverick Hunter was, Storm Tornado! Storm Tornado! Storm Tornado! Oh my god, I like Maverick Hunter. It's not so bad, but my god, they could have not had him announce every single fucking attack. Anyway, but you get rid of Flame Mammoth, and you get rid of your 8 guys, and you get all your items, and you have your fun. What can you do? Well, before you go to face Sigma, what you could do is you go back to Armored Armadillo stage. You have to do it without taking any damage, but if you go to that minecart place towards the end, if you kill yourself a few times, and then you do it again without taking damage, you get another capsule. And being a Capcom game, they threw in a little Street Fighter for your fun. Dr. Light's hologram now has Ryu's headband, and it actually gives you Hadouken. And Mega Man gets to say, Hadouken! And as long as you can do it, and as long as you can hit it, a boss instantly dies. you gotta make it count. I mean, you can only do the Hadouken if you are at full health. If you don't have full health, you have to use your energy tank and redo it, or just fight them as you would. But the Hadouken is great, and I don't think anything like the Z Saber or the Shoryuken. Like the Shoryuken is awesome, visuals wise, but it's finicky because you have to do an upward strike. The Hadouken, if you're an enemy right in front of you, it's fucking over. Like Chill Penguin, dead. Storm Eagle, dead. The bosses that don't move a lot, they're not gonna like you. And we get to the Sigma stages. And the other thing that I enjoy about Mega Man X is they don't do the boss rush thing. At least Mega Man 1 didn't do it, and Mega Man X1 didn't do it. I don't know why they kept with the boss rush idea. I know that you're gonna have to put them anyway, as a like, hey, now you get to fight them all over again, and it's a fun thing. But what I preferred was how Mega Man X did it, where they were littered throughout the stages, and the third stage is its own like mini boss rush. There's not really a lot of connective tissue, but at least the first two stages felt like proper stages, and then there was a couple bosses here and there, and then you fought the big boss. But the Sigma stage 1 is this gigantic this gigantic mountainous pass. You have to either jump and like wall jump to the top, or you have to do the platforming. God, the platforming. But the music is like willing you on, and this like bombastic just fills up the space and fills it up for about like a minute, and then it starts getting really hectic and awesome after about a minute, and you're just driven to get into this fucking base. And Zero is with you. You fight Vile. Zero blows himself up and gives you the Zero Buster and whatnot. I think he gives it to you. Yeah, I think he gives it to you either before you enter the stage or after the Vile thing. But either way, if you didn't get the arm upgrade and all the special powers, you get it here. And you go through like Boomer Kuwanger and then a couple other bosses, and then you fight who is probably the most annoying boss in Mega Man X history, the Boss Spider. And the reason is because Boss Spider runs on RNG, and it sucks balls. But it's also that he only has one weakness, and it's the middle of his body, so you have to slightly jump. You have like a slight window to slightly jump and hit him with shotgun ice in his eyeball before he comes right back up she comes right back up from the top. And she's got these platforms that zigzag, and you never know which one she's going to do. So you have like a split second and down to the floor. And then you have just a split second to do damage. You can't damage her any other way. You could possibly Hadouken her, but I think her eyeball is a little too high up. And just to piss you off even more, if all the zigzags weren't enough, she'll throw out little spiders and wreck your day. But if you can get past her, you can get past anybody. But it's really stupid. Mega Man Sigma Stage 2, a little more straightforward, a few more extra bosses. The music doesn't quite live up in this stage, but I do give them credit for trying to, change it up a little bit. This isn't like Wily stages where they all stay the same music, for better or for worse. There's nothing as good as Mega Man 2 Wily stage, though. Like, that one is obviously one of the best, but I still think Sigma Stage 1 is pretty good. But Sigma Stage 2, pretty simple, pretty vertical. You go through straightforward. You go outside to fight Storm Eagle. You deal with Chill Penguin here and there. And then you fight something known as Rangda Bangda. And it's a weird thing. It's like a spike on the ground that's trying to shove you down to the ground. It's like this nose that's trying to like do armored armadillo sort of things. You get these eyeballs that are trying to shoot at you. And then an eyeball that's just trying to hit you off the platform. If you blow up the eyeballs, the partitions slowly go to the middle, and then you have to keep doing the wall jump to kill the nose. I like to kill the nose first so that you can stay fighting the eyeballs. I forget which order it is. I'm pretty sure if you kill the nose first, the partitions don't close up on you and makes it easier, but you still have that spike death trap. So it's not the hardest boss in the world, but it's annoying. And then Sigma Stage 3 is just the boss rush. It's got this, typical baseline, nothing fancy. There's no crazy thing there. The boss is awesome looking, though. It's this, gigantic, D-Rex tank looking thing. It's like half of a tank, and then its mouth head thing. It's trying to just crush you, and it's trying to run you over with its bottom part, and then it goes to the other side of the stage, and then it tries this fucking gigantic ball of doom. You can only hit it with boomerang cutter towards the top, which is frustrating as a Hadouken go, but it's not hard. It's just big in a small arena. It's a big boss in a small arena. There's not much you can do. But compared to Boss Spider, it's fine. And then you get Sigma himself. Sigma has his dog. He sticks his dog on you, and he can chase you and hit you with fire. Hadouken him or shotgun ice him, and he's done. Sigma himself is cornered and wants to kill you, and he's got his own lightsaber, and and he's just flying over the fucking... His whole attack pattern is he's not even fighting at you directly. His whole thing is he's just zigzag one way, zigzag the other way, zigzag again, and then back down, and you have to make sure, absolutely sure, you're not anywhere near him as he's hitting you, because his whole thing is probably not even saber attacks. It's just, I'm going to hit you, and you're not going to hit me. But if you're able to manage his fight, because he is very swift and very fast, his head explodes and then jumps into this gigantic fucking animal robot monster thing with demon hands, and it's got these electric attacks and homing beams, and it's just a mess. And they the final boss isn't the hardest thing. I still think the boss spider is more frustrating. The fact that you can only hit him from his head, the fact that he has all these spiky bits and projectiles, they make it worth your while. And Sigma is notorious because, much like Dr. Wily, he's that I have my second form, that sort of thing. And they make you earn it. Mega Man X is hard. And I think it tends to be a little harder than Mega Man proper. And it's on the harder side of platformers, but not quite to the level of something like a Castlevania or a Ninja Gaiden or something like that. It's not ruthless, but it can wreck your day if you let it. I said before that I have some issues, most notably the introduction of the Spark Mandrill syndrome, which again is personal preference. If you want to do Buster only or use a different attack, you can. It's not the worst thing. Another thing that more frustrates me, because it was the first attempt, was the implementation of right armor, because all you can really do is dash and punch. So it's just a meaty form of dashing and punching. Other games, they figured out right armor is pretty awesome, and you get to do more things with it, but it's like the power-ups. They gave you the basic stuff that you'll need to power up Mega Man, and it's you gotta remember this was their first attempt at trying Mega Man X, so it was their implementation at the first, and then they added different things later. So I don't know if I'm gonna be so angsty about that one and say, hey, it was their first attempt to give you this fucking mech suit, so deal with it. But Mega Man X is great because I like the SNES color palette. And even compared to something like Mega Man 7, which always felt too what's the term, clownish looking and very vibrant. Not in a bad way, but the music and the soundtrack kind of added to this laissez-faire, bright and colorful, weird sounding effect. Mega Man X is trying to be a darker, dystopic version of the world. It's stuff blowing up. It is people sabotaging one another and betraying one another. It is a darker experience. I know that doesn't really come across in some of the later games because the voice acting is but I think Maverick Hunter on the PSP did okay. Outside of Storm Tornado, Storm Tornado! You know, that shit over and over. You actually get to the cutscenes with Sigma and Zero and some of the Mavericks. They actually have decent voice acting for the time. I rewatched a streamer playing Mega Man X Maverick Hunter, and I was like, this is actually pretty decent. Because I know Mega Man X4 had that, like, what am I living for line. It was really terrible. You know, Maverick Hunter at least is not as bad as that. But it just feels like a bigger scope. It feels like bigger stakes are involved. I like that Mega Man X also adds in the Destructo environments, so you can always like fuck around and say, if you go here first, then you come to this level, this thing happens, and you don't have to deal with this part of the stage, but you open up this, and it's almost like Metroidvania in a way, because the collectathon is there, but you could go here and do a thing. So you have a lot of versatility in how you want to approach a Mega Man game, and those are always the fun bits. But Mega Man X was always one of those fond games that I always go back to, even though I'm not really a platformer fan anymore. I'm always in awe of what they were able to do with the first three Mega Man X games, and, you know, to an extent, Mega Man 7, Mega Man 2, the whatnot. So this was my way of talking about those old school games and what really drove me towards that, like, Japanese style gameplay, you know, because this was Capcom at their best, and, you know, Capcom still trying to do their best. I think Mega Man 11 is actually really freaking good. So it's a good sign that they haven't let Mega Man completely die just yet, and I think eventually they'll bring back Mega Man X, and I think they'll do it in proper shape. I know that they had like a mobile game and whatever. I think you have to go into the fan game market or ROM hack market, like Mega Man X Corrupted and stuff like that, to get a Mega Man X experience now. But I think the retro style Mega Man X can come back someday and really succeed. I know Capcom would be willing to do that. They saw how effective Mega Man 11 was. I'm sure they can bring it back. And I would definitely be someone that's interested, if nothing else. But that'll do it for Mega Man X today. Next week will be RWBY's final episode, volumes 6 through 8. And then I'm going to do Dragon Quest VIII. That'll be the next game. Currently, at time of recording, I'm actually running through the story bits. I know that game by heart, but I want to relearn the minutia of the story because it's been a few years. But Dragon Quest is amazing. And Dragon Quest 5, 8, and 11 will always stand as kind of my favorites. So I'll start with 8, and then we'll, you know, filter on down. You can see why I'm going from series to series and not just going, here, let's just talk Final Fantasy for 10 episodes. No, I want it to vary here and there. But Dragon Quest VIII was my first Dragon Quest experience, and I really loved it. And it makes me want to go back and play those old school ones. I've played up to 4. I don't know if I've played 1 through 3, and I really should get on that. I just don't really have the best access to those games. But still, Dragon Quest VIII is after RWBY. And then, once we're done with RWBY and Dragon Quest, we're actually going to talk about Gankutsou, the Count of Monte Cristo. Now, this is one of my favorite anime. And it's based loosely on the Alexander Dumas story. I don't remember reading it or even watching the movie as a kid. I know there have been a couple of movies, but I remember Count of Monte Cristo as the anime with the crazy visual style, the crazy outfits, and then the soldiers dueling in the later episodes. Anyway, but I remember Gankutsou very fondly. I can't wait to talk about that. That's going to be a couple weeks from now. But we've got our schedule. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please tell me how I'm doing. And I'll see you guys next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.